Before we get started, just a couple of quick Zoom reminders. Please keep yourself muted. And if you have questions for any of the speakers, the way we're going to do this is I'm going to introduce a speaker who will speak for about 20 minutes. And during that time, if you're thinking of a question, you can put it in the chat. And when the speaker is finished, we will address your questions. At the end, if you have some questions that are more general to all of the speakers, if we have time, you can raise your hand or we can continue to read from the chat. And don't forget to fill out the sign-in sheet. Before we hear from all 5 of the speakers, Professor Joy Fritschel would like to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited that our class got to be picked for this career session because it's just a really great opportunity to hear from some really amazing people that are doing work in sustainability and environmental science and environmental studies. So welcome, and again, thank you for choosing our class as the hosts for this. For my Intro to Environmental Studies students, make sure that you also check out the materials that I posted on Canvas. You'll need to make sure you do those readings and check out the websites. It's all related to careers and sustainability this week, but make sure you check out what's posted on Canvas under Module 11. And to everybody else, again, thank you. And I'm excited to see the conversation that we have today.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. So let's get started with our first speaker, who is Nat Zappia, and he is the director of the Institute for Sustainability, and he's also a professor of history, both at Cal State Northridge. For 2 decades, Professor Zappia has directed, created, and participated in multiple projects related to food systems, urban farming, environmental.
John, I'm gonna go donate blood. I'll be back.
Okay. Environmental sustainability and food justice. More recently, Nat has co-founded and launched Open Garden, OG, a history app connecting urban garden spaces with historical environments in Los Angeles and around the world. OG is particularly focused on connecting urban gardeners in South LA through peer-to-peer digital networks. So we welcome you, Nat Zappia. You can unmute yourself and take the floor.
Well, that's an honor. Thank you so much. So it's always hard to hear hear the bio of yourself. So thanks so much, Rachel. Appreciate that. And great to meet you all. I know a few of you, and always happy to hop on board with, especially folks from SMC. We get a lot of SMC students, of course, that come to CSUN. So we, and I've collaborated with a few of you on thinking about these kinds of projects and through the lens of sustainability. So always happy, especially to talk to see my colleagues, but also talk to students and talk with students. So I guess maybe the best way to start is should I kind of go through some of the list of questions, or just
yeah.
Well, I guess maybe so the first question. So I don't know if everyone has been able to see if these are pre-circulated or not, but one of the first questions we got was, how did you choose your career path, right? And I think everyone will tell you, sustainability chooses you. You don't usually choose sustainability. That's what's the beautiful thing about it. I think, of course, there are many sustainability career paths. It's a growth industry, even though that's supposed to be a joke. Growth, sustainability. It's a space that, of course, places like SMC have been pioneers in. And so for students, it's definitely this is something that's old hat now at this point. I think the word sustainability has, gained a lot of cultural currency now. So now it's in the bottom line of any company now. So it's really something that's just, and whether it's greenwashing or not, or whether it's people are really practicing sustainability or not, there is a need to mention that, to kind of to think about that, to talk about that in whatever kind of field you're in. So that just shows you the importance of it and how it's being, it's trickled into every field, from popular culture to the kind of into infrastructure to higher ed, and so in every field. So I'm trained actually as a historian. So I get this question. The question I usually get is, rather than how did you pick sustainability, usually I get it from my colleagues who are in the hard sciences, and they say, "Why are you the director of the Institute for Sustainability again? You're a historian. How does that work?" So, and, they say it in an inquisitive way, not in a dismissive way. They just kind of perplex sometimes. And so what I tell them, and this is how I'll tell you all this, you need to have stories for sustainability. You could have all the solar panels in the world and all of the recycling bins in the world and all of the, the infrastructure there. And if there isn't a buy-in, if the culture isn't there, if the community isn't there, if the story isn't there, it's not gonna, it may work, but it won't work to its maximum capabilities, right? Sustainability, really, you need to have every aspect. It has to start with the culture, with the community. And so for me, telling the stories and thinking about narrative, and Rachel introduced my interest around particularly food justice, thinking about food justice as starting from the community and the community needs. That's how I think of myself as a scholar and a historian, getting those stories from the community out to the outside, to folks who aren't from the community. So acting as a liaison, or as acting as a storyteller on behalf of the community, but also using those stories to empower the communities themselves and to kind of widen that circle of sustainability. So everyone knows that sustainability starts with, it's the internal, right? It's like, it's meditative. It's a day-to-day practice. It's not simply external. You recycle and then that's it, or the solar panels do what they do and that's it. So everyone plays a role in it, and this is why, no matter what your field, and obviously I think there's mostly STEM folks here, but I have this kind of talk with humanities and arts students as well, because students tend to think, oh, I'm interested in sustainability, but I don't have those skills, right? I'm not an engineer. I'm not a farmer. I don't know how I could apply. And it's actually, it's about those. I'll stop. I guess I forgot. I realized I'm supposed to only go for a couple minutes. Is that correct? I thought we were going around, or I keep talking.
You have 20 minutes.
Oh, that's okay.
Talk to the questions, whatever
Okay.
works for
Great.
you.
Please feel free to interrupt me. Rachel said that, in the chat, ask any questions as I'm talking. So I think for me, it's coming from, so I'm an environmental historian. So there are some direct connections with sustainability, and that's how I ended up in this career path. And I'm particularly interested in indigenous food systems, and indigenous history. That's what I was trained in. I'm trained as in the historical parlance. I'm a borderlands scholar, so someone who's interested in the edges, someone who looks at communities that are on the margins. A community, and goes back. I look at time periods going back 500, 600, 700 years. So when you look at environmental history, you have to look at the deep footprint, not just the most recent stuff. So constructing those narratives and connecting the lived experience that we all have, the ground that we all walk on every day, with those deeper histories, and just trying to understand that, and just imagine, just developing that historical imagination. I think it's something that is a great foundation. So for those folks in the arts, and again in the humanities and business, any field, you start with that cornerstone, and that it's like a lens you could have in all of your other fields. So that's kind of how I got into this career. I started actually So I got my PhD in history from UC Santa Cruz, University of California, Santa Cruz. And then I was, I was wanted to be a professor, but those jobs don't just fall from the trees. So that position wasn't around. So then I thought about my skill set and my interests, again, through story, thinking about community, and particularly about environmental history and food history. And so I ended up getting involved with the University of California Master Gardener Program. And so I got there's probably a few Master Gardeners here in the audience. For those who aren't familiar, it's a great opportunity for anybody who was interested in teaching, learning about, and then teaching urban farming in particular. It's a program through the UC. I think it's once a year, maybe it's twice a year. I think now. So it's in LA, and every county in the state has a Master Gardener program. So it's free. You learn how to apply. You learn these kind of basic farming 101 skills, and then the idea is in return you devote X amount of hours a year working in a community that has been designated as food insecure or at risk, economically disadvantaged, et cetera. So this is an incredible program, and that what I learned from that program, as someone who's not from originally from Los Angeles, I'm from New York, but what I learned from that program is this incredible network of not just gardeners and people interested in urban farming, but a different way of understanding Los Angeles and thinking about this vast terrain, which can be overwhelming, especially when you think about sustainability. And it allowed me to meet people who have been involved in the food justice movement for decades, folks who are from every walk of life, not just the garden folks, but the artists, the social workers, the teachers, the lawyers, the community activists, all these folks who are there to learn and also there to network and connect with each other. And so through that experience, I got some basic urban farming skills and that I could disseminate, incorporated that into my historical framework and how I thought about the environment and history and food. And then I brought those skills and started working in these community gardens, in various community gardens and school gardens across the LA. And then from there, I got a job as executive director of the Garden School Foundation, which is one of these organizations based in South LA that works with LAUSD to create outdoor learning environments, so school gardens. And so one of the flagship schools that is still around, the Garden School Foundation, is the 24th Street Elementary School. If anyone hasn't been there, it's an amazing. They have community work days. It's in West Adams, right off of 24th Street and Adams, and Western rather. An acre farm right off of the 10. So you're right there, and it's just this incredible oasis. And so I learned a lot about community there as well. So all that came together, and then I brought that back to academia. I taught 9 years at Whittier College as a history professor, and then we had a small farm there. We planted a coffee orchard there, an experimental coffee orchard. And then this job at CSUN, which was a perfect blend of running the institute and then also still being able to be a professor, allowed me to find this dream job where I'm here now. And I think my advice is in part to have the most expansive. First of all, know that you have these skill sets that sustainability needs, right? That you have something to offer, and then the more as we think about that, then it's about framing those skills and finding if you have that passion for sustainability. Of course, there are the careers that you're probably going to hear about today, but I guess I wanted to, since I'm going first, I wanted to do the big picture as well. And then, of course, I'm sure many of you have specific questions about the different kinds of jobs and that kind of thing. But I think having that framework, it will allow you to open doors for you that it creates new spaces, because sustainability. What's so exciting about sustainability is constantly new spaces opening up around food, around energy, around education, around water. LA is climate, this climate crisis has offered many opportunities, many of them that you have at SMC. I mean, I'm looking at Ferris, of course, who's going to talk about his stuff, and Victoria as well, and the folks I haven't met yet today. I'm sure they're running these amazing programs. So we have, for instance, have a sustainability fashion program at CSUN that we just started, and students love this because it's fashion. It's like what we do every day. We wear clothes every day, right? We eat every day. So it's getting those hidden in plain sight things that we're doing every day, and then putting this, what does it mean when you add sustainability to that? Then it's like, oh, wow, all these, from the labor piece to the supply side, supply chain questions to where the products come from, et cetera, et cetera. So that was something that we didn't necessarily put. It's a natural fit, but there wasn't a program that really put those two together. And I know at SMC we've been meeting with a couple of faculty who in the fashion department who are thinking about this and teaching classes like this. So this is what's exciting. It's for all of you to kind of also, as you're thinking about your careers, to remember the resources, the amazing resources you have at SMC, right? That you have folks like Rachel, right? You have who are thinking about this and really have ways to connect you, and that you have these opportunities to kind of reach out. Don't hesitate to reach out, I think is the key. I see a question here about heirloom seed diversity. Great question. That's wow. How many more minutes do I have left? I'll just answer that really quick. There's a lot of different answers to that. I tend to be, and I've worked with nonprofits and tribal organizations that are all about seed sovereignty, rematriating seeds, thinking about the importance of organic seed saving. I do think, I wouldn't say it's an either or. I mean, and I'm sure maybe it's folks on the panel here who might disagree, but I think at this point there's a lot of room for we need the large scale and we need the small scale. It's not either or. So I think we need the priorities are both. We need to keep thinking about maintaining the food system that's going to feed the planet, but we also need to think about diversity. Seed saving is critical to all of that, and so there are lots of effort. What I would say is there are lots of folks who are engaged in both. Sometimes they're at odds. Many times, of course, Monsanto, et cetera. That's the usual. That's the usual kind of pitting the David and Goliath type of thing. But I think what's exciting about the seed saving is it's happening. It's going to keep happening. That's the beautiful thing about agriculture. Even if a company tries to control every aspect of it, it's culture. So you can't control culture. It's in the end, and that's why it's called agriculture. It's about the local. It's about the knowledge from the communities, and that's what the seeds capture. And I think that's really important. Oh, thanks for putting the Master Gardener link in there. So I hope that answers the question, Alan. And so there's another question about, I can answer some of the other questions you posed. By the way, Rich, feel free, you probably made the mistake of letting me go first, so feel free to redirect me in any way, but.
You're fine, you're fine.
Okay.
You've got about 5-7 more minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
So Tom asked about, thank you. Oh, excellent. Oh, great segue for me to kind of, not for me, for CSUN. So vertical farming, Tom asked about Bowery Farm. There are lots of amazing urban farms, vertical farms that are popping up, of course, in big cities and small cities. And this, I think, urban farming is something we're particularly interested in at CSUN, as part of the city, just like Santa Monica. Santa Monica is its own city, but it is part of LA. And for students, in terms of careers and sustainability, I think the food space, the urban farming space, the vertical farming is a perfect place to jump in. I know, again, SMC is doing aquaculture programs and certificate programming or that kind of intersect with this. At CSUN, we actually just got a hydroponic farm, it's called a freight farm, which is a vertical farm. It's the size of a shipping container. I'll put the link in the chat later, so you can take a look. It's just this unassuming shipping container, and when you go inside, it's like you're blasted off into a spaceship where it's like trays, a vertical farm of 2 acres worth of food production in a 10 by 40 shipping container. So we're going to be able to grow probably by the end of the year, well, probably by a few more months. We just got this freight farm this summer, so we're still tinkering with it, but it's 4,000 head of lettuce a month. That's the capacity for this in a 10 by 40 shipping container. So you can imagine and uses something like 200 gallons of water a month. So minimal water use. We're talking like, think about a farm, 2 acres, how much water is used to grow that much food. So very minimal. And right now it's hooked up to our grid on campus. So it costs about $1,200 a month in terms of electricity. But if you put that on solar, now you're not paying any energy. Now it's just, a few gallons of water a day is basically what you're talking about here. So, and it's hooked up to our iPad. You can just kind of play around with, I want to add more sunlight, another hour of sunlight on tray number 4. I want to add a little more phosphorus, and you can operate everything out of your phone. So it's obviously built for the Gen Z, right? It's built for the digital natives here. So it's just amazing, and you're all welcome to come check it out. There are about 400 of these freight farms around the world. There are many other, this is a bunch of companies doing this, and maybe SMC is even exploring this. I'm not sure, but what I love about it is it's the food sovereignty piece. You have a piece of equipment that it's untethered from land. LA, it's all about, we know how expensive land here in LA. Imagine 2 acres in Santa Monica. That's like, gosh, I mean, who knows what that would cost. But now you can all you need is a parking space, essentially, and a hookup to water, which is not going to be that much. And if you have solar, now it's like a community farm that's basically giving them some sovereignty now, or they can grow stuff and run programs out of it that are, high value, that will generate income for the community. So that's what we're training our students now in that, like training them with the equipment, but also with the mindset, the community orientation. And what's great about it is that you could scale them up, literally stack them, the shipping containers. You stack one on top of the other or right next to each other. Now you got 4 acres, 3 of them, you get 6 acres, and on and on. And it's not just greens. You can grow almost anything in these. You could raise fish, tilapia. You could raise seaweed, perhaps. So we're going to kind of play around that and think about that maybe. So there's lots of different ways for students to think about the vertical farming. I think, so I'll stop there. Yeah.
I was just going to say, any last words? We can give you a few seconds more if you're interested.
I mean, maybe I'll just invite you all. I'll take this second to please come visit. Please, I'll leave my email in the chat too, and you could all get in touch with me if you have any questions. I just scratch the surface. We do a lot of stuff we work with our tribal partners as well on indigenous food sovereignty and thinking about sustainability and traditional ecological knowledge. So lots of other kinds of things we're working on, but those are just the kind of the highlight of a few things that we're really excited about. So thank you for this time.
Thank you. And yes, if you can put your email address, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
One of our sustainability professors, Professor Grebler, said SMC has a beautiful organic garden.
Yes.
And at the moment it's growing food to donate to weekly food giveaways to students. And we haven't done the hydroponic, but we can and should.
Yeah, it's a great,
thank you.
I'm happy to talk about that and come visit. And I'll do that. I'll reach out. Julian. Great.
And some additional information in the chat for other people to take a look at.
Yeah, I just want to point out, Jillian also says that we do have a sustainable food systems class as part of our organics certificate, which is a free certificate for students.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ferris. Well, thank you, Nat. I know you said you have to go a little early. If you can stick around, if
Yeah,
we do
absolutely.
get any more
got some time,
questions
yeah.
for you, that would be
Sure, I'd love to-
awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so much, so much. That was really interesting. So next up, we're going to give the floor to Alexander Hahn. And Mr. Hahn is a zero waste manager and recycling coordinator at Athens Services, which is a waste collection and recycling company. And he manages a team of recycling coordinators who educate customers on zero waste practices. He also helps customers with their waste service, including trash, recycling, and organics, to be compliant with state mandates. And we'll let Mr. Hahn tell us more about himself, and we welcome you. You've unmuted yourself. Thank you.
All right, cool. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Sweet. Well, hey, thank you for inviting me to come and speak here. I think this is great, and it's good to see all the faces and all the people that are here listening and watching, and great hearing Mr. Nat share about his experiences. I love the story narrative thing. I think that's super important in culture, I think, and community. Those are big topics that we could probably talk about forever. I'll start for me first. I'm actually from Atlanta, Georgia. Originally, I went to University of Georgia, who is #1 in the college football rankings. My background is there. I actually transferred to University of Maryland, and then lived in New York for a little bit, and worked in advertising sales, and moved back down to Atlanta. Did business, worked in real estate, property management, development, and even ran a e-commerce website, fashion website. So I have a pretty extensive background and experiences and travels and meeting people and just growing and learning. So I think a big topic, hopefully people can take away, is growing and learning. I think growing and learning is such a big part of my story. I'm almost like 43, 44 now. So 20, 30 years of growing and learning. And it actually happened while I was in college. There was a person that came and spoke at University of Georgia and shared about, hey, what do you want to do in your career? What's your passion? What's your purpose? What are some steps that you can actually take to achieve those things that you want to do? And he really lit a fire on me, and taking action and writing down and really thinking about what I wanted to do. This is when I'm like 20, 21, 22, right? And so yeah, a pretty big background and learning what you want to do. So I think as we start, you guys are students and you guys are taking classes or interested in classes, what kind of career path you all want to go to. I think #1, try to find out, like for me, what do I want to do? What's my passion and purpose? I love the movie, The Matrix. You guys seen The Matrix? That's one of my favorite movies. I love the movie School of Rock. You guys seen that movie with Jack Black? Those two movies are such great stories. And I think movies and stories that we like to watch and listen and hear and read, and books, those are actually gateways to see what we're passionate about or what's our purpose and what we like to do. And so Matrix and School of Rock, you have these people, Morpheus or Jack Black, they're inspiring and helping and growing and learning Neo or the students, right? So I think #1 is trying to find that for yourself, as you guys are our audience are mostly students or thinking about going into something. So identifying what your passion and purpose is. How did I get into this? 5 years ago, I found one of my friends posted a job for doing outreach and education in Koreatown. And I was like, oh, cool. I love meeting with people. And it was actually a position for a recycling coordinator for the city of Los Angeles. And it was when the city of LA switched to franchise. So pretty much everyone was serviced by one hauler, and the hauler had to implement all the recycling and trash and organic this year to all the commercial businesses and multifamilies. So 5 years ago, I got into the industry, had no sustainability background, none. I started working here 5 years ago as a recycling coordinator, and then I and then I got promoted to a manager 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, as a recycling coordinator, it opened my eyes, and working for Athens opened my eyes to trash, recycling, organics. I never thought of those things. When I threw my trash away, oh, it'll get handled. But working on the trash waste management industry, going to the landfill and seeing how much waste we generate, oh my goodness, it's crazy how much waste that we dump in those landfills. Going to our MRF, where a lot of our recyclables get separated, and going to an organic facility where we take our food and organic material and it gets made to compost. So seeing what we do as a company and growing and learning and helping customers to helping with their zero waste plans and such. I'm gonna jump around all over the place. My mind is always going back and forth. So that's a little bit about me as a recycling coordinator and working for Athens. I manage a team of recycling coordinators in West LA, and we work with all the commercial multifamilies with 5 units or more. So in West LA, we have about 10,000 accounts, and I manage a team of coordinators that go out there, engage with customers, and have them have the correct services for their solid waste, their recycling under AB 341, and also for organics, the green bin, which is this year for AB 1826 and SB 1383. So being a recycling coordinator, I kind of understood what they were doing. Now I manage the coordinators, and we go out there and really go engage and outreach and educate customers. It's a very field heavy job. I love it. It's the practicality of actually changing people's behavior and having them divert some of their waste, right? So that's kind of the main thing we do out over here in Athens and with our outreach education team. What do I love about my job? I love my team. I love seeing my coordinators, if they're new or if they've been here for 2 years or 3 years, I love seeing them grow and really develop skills. I think we have folks that have learned a lot in our company in regards to zero waste sustainability. They have those backgrounds. I think there's two aspects to it, right? There's number one, there's the thought, the ideas that people have, right? Like we have to live more zero waste, right? There's a lot of waste, there's a lot of recyclables, there's a lot of organics, right? And there's a lot of stuff that we can learn about CO2 emissions, carbon emissions, how the environment's affected by our trash. But there's also like the engagement piece, the people piece. And so I really like what we do because it's actually engaging with customers and actually working with people to change their behavior. I think it's super important where we can actually develop and engage with people. I guess the point I'm trying to make is we can have a lot of wisdom and knowledge about zero waste and sustainability, but we also can work with our communities, work with the people we work with, our neighbors, our family and friends to actually change their behavior too. My wife never recycled, and I started working here, and we put up a sign of what goes where, what's recyclable, what goes in the green bin. We have it on our refrigerator. We've got 3 cans in our house where we separate our trash, recycling, and organics. And so I think it makes a pretty big difference, and we really try to engage people to change their behavior. So that's probably the best part about this job. We're actually changing people's behavior. To put it in context, you guys see those green carts? Those green carts where you put your waste if you're a single family home and the trash truck comes and picks it up, 96-gallon trash cart. So if you fill up that trash cart with food or organic material and it doesn't go to the landfill and actually goes to our organic facility, and that 96-gallon cart is picked up every week for a year and it's filled up, you're actually reducing about 24 tons of carbon emissions. So even little practical things like separating your trash, recycling and organics, and actually using it, it actually makes a difference. I talked about going to the landfill. I went to the landfill. When a landfill is actually full, and it's filled, you can't put more stuff on it. There's actually all these pipes that come out of the landfill. And even when a landfill is full, it's emitting carbon emissions, right? So all these pipes have to always suck out all these carbon and gases, CO2 gases. And it's pretty gnarly. Even maintaining a full landfill, managing it, it's like $3 million just to manage a full landfill. So our team's goal is to reduce landfill and increase diversion through separating through recycling and organics. And yeah, that's kind of like the main part of what we do here at Athens and with my team. What else? What are some other questions we have?
What advice do you have for students wanting to go into the business of sustainability or recycling? Or
Good question. What advice? Yeah. I think with this position, I think going to school, and I have a couple of recycle coordinators that actually went through the SMC program. I've got 4, and they're some of my 4 of my most talented, gifted, amazing coordinators I have here. So I love what SMC does. Y'all should take a class at SMC because I see the knowledge that they have and the passion and like the level of depth that the information that they got. And when they come back to Athens and they're doing their job, engaging with customers, there's a passion. There's a, wow, I have all this information I've learned from school or education through books, and now I can actually share that with my customers, like practically meet with customers. So I think education is super important. You have to learn. And so, I mean, I think what's great is we have so many different outlets to learn with like online, in class, YouTube, Coursera. There's all these amazing things. But I do recommend SNC class practically because I got 4 folks from your classes and they're amazing. So what you all teach there, I love it. I want to get more of my folks to take classes there because I think you guys do a great job of igniting that fire of why do we have to do this? Why is this important? What does sustainability mean? What does zero waste mean? And so that depth of care goes up, right? So I think IQ, learning, is super important. I also think EQ is emotional intelligence. So I think learning about who you are, what you want to do, how you want to make a difference, how you want to serve others, how you want to contribute to others, how you want to grow as a person, how you relate with others. I really like the book. There's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Great book. It actually teaches me to listen to people and not try to talk over them, but listen to get what they're really saying and then responding to what they're trying to say. So I think IQ and EQ is super 2 things that we should all be doing and growing and always doing. Hey, IQ, go to school. EQ, you learn that and develop. There are different classes that you can take for the EQ too, but learning about yourself and what you want to do and growing that. I think being confident is super important. Like confidence doesn't mean bravado. I think confidence is being, hey, you know what, who I am, I'm good right now. I'm good. Obviously there's places for me to grow, but I accept myself. I accept who I am. And I have a voice. I can hold some space. So I think confidence is something I'm always developing. We're always developing. So you can have a place to kind of speak and share and do and take action. So IQ, EQ, I think confidence and character, and like having high character is super important. Like people know if you're a high character person. And when you're working with people, whether it's coworkers or customers, you want to have good integrity and character, right? Actually, competency and capacity. Competency, it goes back to learning, right? Growing in like how much you know, right? And capacity is developing and practicing. Like, how good are you with Outlook? How good are you with email? How good are you project management? like the practicing to increase your capacity of how much you can do. And the last thing is chemistry, working with people. A lot of this is working with people, working with your communities. If I have all these great ideas and these passions, but if I can't communicate and change and share and build chemistry and get people to understand this bigger purpose we're trying to do, it's just me knowing a bunch of stuff, right? So we want to really have our RCs here really share what they do and work well with others, communicate well, and try to build good relationships. So those are 5 C's right there. I kind of put down. Yeah, I think the first step actually going to the school at SMC. I think it's a real life thing, and what you guys do, it's really helpful. I can see it in my RCs. I had a RC a recycling coordinator is an RC. He didn't have a background in sustainability and zero waste. He had more of an academic school background. He started working here. He took the class at SMC. And after the class, I see this renewed joy and passion and care for what he's doing here when we're engaging with customers and trying to share about diversion, zero waste practices, and having recycling bins and organics bins and signage and training. So yeah, so that's the advice I would give. Just develop all those things, EQ, IQ, and all the 5 C's I kind of mentioned. And always keep growing in that, so growing and serving always.
And it looks like in the chat, there's a couple of comments. A few of our SMC Recycling and Resource Management students work at Athens. Is that correct?
Yes, I've got 4 on my team, and they're amazing. I love them. And they always share how amazing their experience was at SMC. So I think what you guys are doing is just amazing. How you guys have great people teaching the classes and really inspiring people to learn more and having a passion for sustainability, zero waste, and whatever field you're in and however you want to practically do it in your career. But that core thing of like, hey, this is a big deal and we can actually change. We have to change. I mean, you can feel in the climate, and there's there's so much the to do. Right, we have this goal. We have these goals to do, and we have people like y'all and my team here, and we need to kind of spread that message out. And I think that spreading that message out is where we actually listen to people, engage with people, build relationships with people, have community with people, and it slowly happens, right? So.
There's a couple of questions in the chat I'll read out loud. One says, hi, Alex, I was wondering how you guys deal with e-waste. How does it get separated from other junk? How often do you see e-waste per household? And how does e-waste get recycled, reused? Are there any specific companies that work directly with e-waste?
Very good question. E-waste is not allowed in our trash, recycling, or organics bin. They're considered hazardous waste. So what do you do with them? Well, there is a list of safe collection centers that they can drop off their e-waste, like batteries. Batteries are gnarly. And e-waste are gnarly because if you put something that's e-waste that's hidden and it goes into our trash truck and it catches on fire, it's pretty scary for the driver and everyone around. It's called a hot load. And so the trash truck, it's on fire. The driver jumps out of the truck. I've seen some video. And all of our trucks in LA with Athens, with all of the city of LA, they're all CNG trucks too. So which makes it even kind of crazier, right? So we don't put e-waste in there because it's really dangerous. So where can you take it? Safe collection centers. Homeboy is a partner that we can actually you can actually donate to, and I think they pick up, I believe also. I think there's other e-waste collection companies out there too. I think Best Buy takes like old phones. Anything that has a battery or you have to connect to a power source is considered e-waste. But do not put those in the trash bin because it could start a fire in our trash trucks. And yeah, it's pretty scary when a trash truck's on fire. So
Let's see, we put the name of the book that you mentioned in the chat, and I think that's, let's see here, a couple of other quick things I'm looking for.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention that the sustainability director at Athens was once a SMC professor in our recycling and resource management, Jessica
I
Aldred.
heard.
Mhm.
Yeah, I heard. She mentioned that before. So yeah, she's the best. She is amazing. She's our director, and she's developed a lot. I think all of our content is from her and her team. So she is just amazing, and I think she's been with Athens for many years, and seeing it kind of come in the past 4 or 5 years now, with all the mandates, with 341, 1826, 1383, and all the cities actually having to comply with these Cal Recycle mandates. It's actually working, and a lot of the stuff that she's made, we're training customers on with pictures and what goes where, and videos, and the YouTube page, the Instagram page. There's so much good content out there. You know, I have a friend who doesn't really, who's not very environmental or sustainable, right? But I share with him about the landfill and how much it costs to maintain a landfill and how much CO2 comes out of a landfill. And he actually started separating his food waste. And this is a person that doesn't really care. He doesn't believe in some of the stuff I'm telling him, right? But it's a step, right? So I think if we kind of share that language, that change of separating your food, there's a lot of food. Donate it to companies like Food Cycle, St. Francis. Like, food is such a big contributor of CO2, and if we can just start with that, that will make a huge difference with some of the climate change initiatives we're trying to achieve. So yeah, Jessica's great. She's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. If you have any additional questions for Alex, you can put them in the chat. Looking at time, I'm going to move on to our next speaker, who, Natalie, is that you? Can you unmute yourself?
Yep, I'm on.
Thank you, Natalie, for getting here. I know you were away from the camera for a little while. So Natalie Flores is one of our SMC alumni and founder of Nourish LA, which is a food recovery program which she started during the COVID pandemic. Natalie is a passionate gardener, advocate, and urban farmer. She's connected those in need of food to those with excess food through donations from all around the local area. Excess food from farms, community trees, gardens, food that would have been otherwise thrown out by supermarkets is used to feed those in need. So I'll let Natalie take the floor and give us some additional information about herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So I went to SMC at the age of 26 years old. After traveling and working on various farms throughout Central and South America, I came here with a desire to want to serve people through the same medium that connects us all, and that's the soil. The soil and the ground, our foundation. But I think food has always been a humongous, my biggest bridge maker, and my best way to cultivate friendships and community has always been through food. And it was kind of a no-brainer. You know, once I went to SMC, I took all the environmental classes I possibly could, as well as worked at the garden on campus, which brought me a lot of incredible friendships and connections. And I just knew that my end result was always going to be in the food world. And when the pandemic hit, I'm part of a mom's group. I have 2 kids, but at that point I had a daughter, and I was part of a LA moms group, and I was seeing just how many people were asking for help with food. It has 76,000 moms on the group, and post after post just read, "Help, mom, can someone get me a pizza? We're on our last $100. Can someone buy my family groceries? I don't know where the nearest food bank is. Can someone guide me to food?" And I was like, this is literally insane. It's insane for multiple reasons. There is no lack of abundance at all with food. What there is a problem of waste and it not getting to the people that it needs to go to. And B, there's enough food in people's trees alone to feed these hungry people that's just rotting. And C, there's no network or channel where all this food can go to. Like, where does it go? And I knew that for surely a lot of the majority of this food waste is going in the trash. It's going into landfill. And that is really awful. After traveling, I really, really came with new eyes to America, and just I was just so much more reverent, and I saw food as this very sacred, special tool. And it's important. You know, we need it to sustain ourselves. We can't function when we're not nourished. Our brains do not function. We cannot think of how to create systems and implement all these different things that we want to implement unless we have the proper nourishment. And I just think it could be a tool and it could be a weapon. And here in the midst of a pandemic and in one of the most heavily populated states across America, we have people dealing with food insecurity. And in the same time, we have some of the most wealth. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Why do we have so much disparity? And why, at the minimum, why aren't people fed? So all this really upset me, but it led me to create something, and that was Nourish LA. The second week of the pandemic, I saw all these posts. I went to the Whole Foods around the corner and I asked them, what are you guys doing with your waste? What are you guys doing with your excess food at the end of the day? Surely they were not diverting it to green waste like I had thought. They were throwing it in the trash. They had no plans to figure out who it was going to go to. And I asked them, like, what do I need to do to access this food? And they told me the loopholes I needed to go through. And one of them was partner up with a nonprofit, an already established nonprofit that was that was used specifically for just feeding people. So I called some friends, and then I just so happened to run into a couple volunteers from Food Cycle that week. And I told them, hey, there's like all these moms in the LA Moms group asking for food. Like, what would it take for me to get access to your hauls that you guys get? And they basically wanted me to create a plan. And my plan was simply just get in my garage with a bunch of my neighbors, upcycle paper bags that everybody had, you know, stored up in a cupboard somewhere for a few years, and create grocery bags of food and give them out to people that needed them. I did a post on that same group, and within an hour's time, and then I partnered up with Food Cycle and a nonprofit, and I was able to get a humongous van load of food. And we're talking about beautiful food, like, you know, brioche bread, Strauss milk, yogurt, produce. And the only thing that's wrong with it was maybe it expires in a couple days, but we know that expiration dates are just an estimate. They're not accurate. If one egg was broken in a dozen, they would toss that whole the other 11 eggs in the trash. So we were just replacing that broken egg with a fresh egg, you know, cleaning up. If there was a one smashed apple in the bag, removing the smashed apple and composting that. Really, this food it's great. It's beautiful. Like, so what? You know, like, all that stuff can be totally cleaned up and then distributed to people that need it. There's nothing wrong with it, except for maybe some blemishes, but that's no big deal. If you're a hungry family, you're going to be stoked to have that food. So here we are. We started this in my garage in the midst of a pandemic, and the food was gone in an hour, and people were crying like out of gratitude. And I just thought, like, I'm only getting to a small percentage of these people. How do we reach more people? So I called an old boss of mine who owns a bunch of restaurants, in the area. And I said, hey, like, are you sitting on mountains of food? And surely he was. And I said, how many more restaurant owners do you know? Well, he happened to know quite a bit. I guess the restaurant, world, you get to know everybody. And he was also sitting on a parking lot and all these different kinds of infrastructures, refrigeration, all kinds of stuff. He had just laid off 70 of his employees. So we decided to partner up and create a food drive at his old restaurants called the Wood Cafe on Washington and Inglewood. And quickly, week after week, we doubled and tripled and quadrupled the amount of people that we were able to feed. And we were able to create more posts on more forums through social media. And people were picking backyard fruit and diverting it to us. People were coming with their leftovers and their freezers and their pantry spaces from their restaurants and donating them to us. And it was just crazy. And now here we are, almost in our 3-year anniversary in April, but now we're feeding thousands of people every single weekend. And, we're looking to expand the amount of hub sites that we have, because not only have we been able to feed people, we've been able to divert a huge amount of waste or food that would normally go to waste and get it to people that need it. But we've also been able to cultivate community. And I think that is one of the best things that could have happened throughout this pandemic, is we were able to cultivate, a sense of like belonging and a sense of like necessity. Like, this is important. We're not messing around. People need food and they have no way to access it. Where do they go? And people need healthy food. And it's just crazy. Now we have other problem of inflation, and people can't afford the food that they normally would want to eat. And it's just insane. So our lines have not stopped. We're still serving 1,000 people per hub site. And it's just been really quite remarkable to see what has happened in the midst of COVID and now inflation. And knowing this entire time before COVID happened, we still had this problem. And that's food waste. Why are we going to ever waste food? There's so many people that need it. There are students. There are 30% of the community that we serve are elders that don't have family nearby, that live alone. I can't imagine my grandparents sitting in a home by themselves and not having anywhere to go or somewhere to turn to if they needed food. So like, these are all really important things to figure out, that, and they needed to be done a long time ago. COVID just allowed me the moment to just act and do something about it. But my favorite part about this whole thing is we've cultivated connection, we cultivated friendships. And we became an established 501c3. I formed a board of directors, and here we are. I just had a meeting before this with a bunch of amazing, successful business folk that want to donate to our cause. And it feels really good to be able to share with people that, where one sees a problem, there's often a solution. So, all the problems that we see out in the world, there's a solution to those, but only if we act. We can complain and we can get mad all we want, but we really need to create systems that work and put them in place. And those are really good opportunities to cultivate community. And I think for me anyway, food is the easiest way to do that. So I'm thankful to be where we're at, and I'm just hoping that we can grow and expand and be able to serve more people. I would love, like in my dream world, I would love to be able to go state to state to state to state, showing different companies and organizations how they can implement and work with small grassroots organizations to divert any bit of, of food waste, whether it be to animal husbandry or regenerative agriculture, and to people, because like none of this should end up in landfill. Honestly, like even if everybody was fed, everybody in the entire world, we're still going to have the problem of waste, but it's what we do with it that matters. And it really should be going back into the ground at the very least. So that's where I'm at, and not in a big hole with a bunch of other stuff. I mean, like, composted properly to create topsoil and sequester carbon. So that's where I'm at. And I am going to keep moving forward. And I hope to open more hub sites and to inspire more peoples to act and to do and to get to know their neighbors through food, because it is one of the easiest ways. Everybody needs to eat. And it's just a really simple commonality that we all have.
Natalie, tell us a little bit about your own education, and did you have internships, or how did you really get started in this whole area? Was it because of a class or classes?
Well, I did take, I took the waste management and resource classes. I got my certification, and that was really awesome. And it did open my eyes. I got to audit a Whole Foods as one of my projects, the one in Santa Monica, and they weren't actually doing very great as far as diversion. So I'd already known that, we're not doing a lot of places aren't doing a good job at diverting their green waste. But I did take all the environmental classes, and I've traveled quite a bit. So just comparing and contrasting and seeing different problems. I'm just a problem solver naturally. But what we also did on campus when I was there is that we had a free farmers market. So I got to know a lot of the people that were helping to get food from point A to point B, whether it was the Westside Food Bank or Food Forward. So I had already cultivated those relationships at Santa Monica College as a student. So when the shit hit the fan, like it did during COVID, I just reached out to all those people and I said, hey, do you guys remember me? I want to do something, like, can I have your support? And, I basically just rekindled all those relationships I had already made. And it worked out to our benefit because, we had already worked together in some way. And through Santa Monica College, I was able to cultivate those friendships. And, it was kind of a no-brainer when I had to call folks to say, hey, where can I get this food? And to do call outs. I was obviously a lot more confident in asking for what I needed. And yeah, but I know we live in abundance. I don't come from the mindset of there is not enough. I know there's enough. It's just not getting to the places that it needs to get to, but how do we create the systems and the infrastructures? Well, that's where we have to do grassroots work. So I just set off to do that. I wasn't an intern. I was a garden manager. I also have worked for Kiss the Ground. They're responsible for creating education systems for regenerative agriculture for farmers and teaching people about the importance of healthy soil. So I come from the nonprofit world. I've volunteered for tons of different nonprofits since I've lived here in Los Angeles. And I've just learned through service. I've shown up and try to get involved and try to learn what people are trying to accomplish.
There's a lot of compliments in the chat. You can take a look, including what an amazing example of what even just one person can do when they're inspired. Lisa said she worked for an institution that wasted food from their restaurants. They claim they couldn't donate it for liability reasons. Is this a real concern? And if so, is there a workaround?
Yes, there is. There is always a loophole, folks. I always encourage people to get there. Never lose your sight. Never lose your rebelliousness. If you are a rebel, which most of us have that in our hearts, to honor that rebel and to figure out the loopholes, because every day these loopholes are used against us in some way. And we can also use the loopholes to reverse anything that is upon us. So in the case of food, you guys, it's not hard. So the way that you would go about getting that food is partnering up or having even just a friend, or if you know somebody that works at a church, for example, any organization or entity that feeds people can easily use their nonprofit ID to access that food. So all you got to do is know somebody. You got to know somebody that's feeding people. The reason why that liability exists is because they don't want people selling that food. Now I understand that. So you got to have, you got to know somebody that's feeding people. You can partner up with a church. You can partner up with there's thousands of organizations that are feeding people, religious institutions, all kinds of organizations. But you would go in there with their tax ID information and then acquire the food. And that actually removes all liability from both parties. And that was started in the 70s because a gentleman got sued and then he took it to the Supreme Court and he won because he was just trying to feed homeless people. And so there are always loopholes, folks. And the loophole is you can't sell the food that you receive. You have to give it away. And I'm glad. I'm really glad.
Natalie, Professor Grebler said people can volunteer for Nourish LA. Can you tell us how to do that? And
yeah, we've received some of our best volunteers have come from, these types of these kinds of speaking engagements. So what you do to volunteer for Nourish LA is you just go to nourish.la on your
put that in the
engine.
chat.
Okay. And then there's an icon that says volunteer. You click on volunteer. It sends you to a waiver. So that's like your liability waiver. So that's like if you get hurt on site, you're not going to sue us. That doesn't have to do so much with the food, but has to do with your own safety. So then there's like a volunteer waiver, and then you sign that. And once you sign that, it'll ask to enter your phone number because we have like an automated text thread. So every Wednesday you'll receive a text saying, hey, you signed up to volunteer, and it'll ask you what shift you want to perform. We have different shifts from 10 a.m. till noon to 4. And we have 2 locations, one at St. Mark's and one at the UCLA housing off of Sawtell.
Wonderful. Can you tell us what's needed to start refrigeration, parking, volunteers?
Yeah. So I would say the heartbeat is a community. You need people that are going to help you sort bags, organize all this stuff. You need a community. So maybe a church or a nonprofit or some kind of already established organization. It could even be like a group of friends, because that's what it initially was just a group of friends. That's your heartbeat. And then you start working on infrastructure, whether it's coolers, whether it's refrigeration, a parking lot. I say parking lot because a lot of the times, so we have 30% of the people that we give food to are elders, and they can't make it on site to us. So we partnered up with DoorDash. DoorDash comes and then picks up their groceries and delivers it to them. So that's why a parking lot is helpful. Whether you want to deliver groceries to folks, that may be very well up to you. Whatever's in your capacity and however you can serve is always great. If you want people to come on foot or in cars, you have to establish what your parameters are. But it is helpful to have a parking lot only because where are you going to sort your food? You need some substantial space. Now, you don't need a ton of space. You just need enough space to accomplish whatever your goal is. So if your goal is to feed your apartment complex or your, the neighbors in the area in mind of how many people you feed or who you want to feed, what demographic, where are you located? But I'll tell you what, that there are a lot of people that are in need of food. We've hit the maximum capacity that we're able to serve at our locations, which is about 1,000 people on average, Saturday and Sunday. But I know that there's so many more. And in order for us to serve them we got to form more established hub sites. So refrigeration, a parking lot, and a community that's going to be the people that serve and make these bags of food. There is no lack of food in my that I've seen. That's anybody that tells you that there's not enough food to feed people, the hungry people, they're lying, because I've seen it with my own eyes, just how much food gets thrown away, and it's like Costco size times 1,000.
So Natalie, one more minute we'll give you, and then we're going to need to move on to the next speaker. Everybody that's here today, take a look at the chat. There's lots of great links and information in addition to what Natalie just told us. Any last words, Natalie? And by the way, can students, if they have questions past today, get in touch with you? Could you give us information on how to do that through your website or email?
Yes, absolutely. You can just go to nourish.la and you can press contact and it'll send you to our email. Feel free to ask questions. You can go to our Instagram and Instagram message us, however is convenient for you. Or you just come on site and see what we're doing so that you understand the procedures and the flow. And I promise you'll have fun too. It's super fun and engaging, and it's just a really good time. And it also feels really good to like see all this food that you're helping to divert from going to waste and getting it to people that need it. It's a good feeling. It really fills you up with goodness.
Well, you are awesome, and we so appreciate your being here along with our other two speakers. I am looking at time, going to introduce our next speaker. And if you have additional questions, you can put them in the chat, and then we'll have some time after these two last speakers to conclude with some additional questions. So our next speaker is Artelia Gilliard. Ms. Gilliard is a Senior Manager of Environmental Leadership and Sustainability Communications for the Ford Motor Company. In this position, she helps bring Ford's purpose to help build a better world to life, working at the intersection of Ford's environmental and sustainability priorities to create new opportunities for impact through education, policy engagement, and partnerships. Her career has spanned a range of issues affecting transportation and mobility, from well to wheels, including land use planning, energy development and permitting, community engagement, and environmental policy. So a warm welcome to Artelia Gilliard. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. I wanted to give us a bit of a brain break, maybe an adrenaline rush, depending on how you're wired, and share a really short video. It's about 1.5 minutes, but I think you'll enjoy it if I can get this done correctly. So I'm sharing sound. This is the first test of leadership, is can I play this video?
Can a truck change everything?
Can you guys hear that? Okay, I can
It
raise
could
the
change our
volume.
company, pointing the way forward for 180,000 of us across the globe towards a digital future with connected experiences and over-the-air updates. It can change the Rouge yet again, helping write the next chapter of American manufacturing. It can change the way we build forever, creating state-of-the-art, zero-waste to landfill facilities that change communities and regions along the way. It can change how Americans, how the world, feels about electric vehicles. It can change who we think drives a truck, who drives an EV, who drives a Ford. That's a lot for one truck to do, but this thing's just getting started. Turn it on and it will change how you think about driving, about towing, hauling, about powering a campsite or a work site. It's the only EV that's an F-150, the only EV built for tough, the only EV smart enough, fast enough, tough enough to carry our name. So can this truck change everything? Well, let's find out.
So I shared that video, and I hope you know that I did not share it because I'm trying to sell you a truck. That is not the goal. I just wanted I wanted to give you a glimpse of how Ford is thinking. Oh, now it's going to play another video. Whoops, hold on, let me, my web browser. It could be the Ford channel all day. We could just watch video. Okay, I stopped that successfully. But showed you that video because I wanted to help give, for those who don't know what's happening at Ford Motor Company, give a perspective of what my role is and the challenge that we're facing as a company. So I have spent about 20 years in this world called sustainability. I got my start, I actually was in the military. I was at the Air Force Academy. And I really thought, I went to the academy because I really was just interested in how the world works, how things move. I couldn't decide actually a specialty in engineering. So the academy was one school where you could have just a general engineering degree. There's not a lot of programs like that where you get to try all the different types of engineering and decide if you like one of them better than the other. And first thing that I learned in engineering school is that I'm incredibly fascinated about engineering, but that nobody should trust me to actually do any of that work because I am not that detail oriented. And I did not enjoy math, and I never could recreate some of the answers that my professors were getting. So that was my first clue that maybe no one wanted me to build a bridge for my career. But the second lesson I learned is that as much as I'm fascinated by these topics, I am also very good at explaining them and sort of translating these very complex ideas for the average human who may or may not be as interested as I am in how something works. And the third thing I learned is one of my classes that I found the most fascinating was civil engineering. And part of what we did in civil engineering, we actually were working on climate change as a threat to military operations and to societies. And so in that class, we were modeling how the military could support communities that were experiencing severe weather, flooding, land changes and changing weather patterns, and how that would provide a risk to not just the people, but the businesses, the communities, infrastructure, and a whole range of things. So I learned a lot in engineering school. None of them resulted in me actually becoming an engineer, but I'm very happy, and I like to tell my colleagues that I speak engineer, and that is my secret ninja skill, is I can speak it and I can explain it sometimes. I've had a very diverse career. I use this term well to wheels, and it literally, I've touched every part of our energy and transportation system, from working at the Department of Interior and the Department of Transportation during the Obama administration, and figuring out how do we safely get oil and gas and other natural resources out of the ground while preserving biodiversity, while protecting the environment and using those resources smartly. And at Department of Transportation, I thought about how to move it around the country in a way that was safe for communities, and also, how to bring new types of energy online, how to use the land permitting process to create renewable energy and solar arrays and wind turbines and sites and facilities where we can integrate renewable energy into our grid and hopefully move towards more sustainable energy sources. And now at Ford, I am working on the wheels part of it. And so now we've got vehicles on the ground. We know that they make a huge impact on climate change and greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. And how do we actually move the country from what we're used to and what we know to something that might be better for our communities, better for our health, and better for our environment? I also strongly believe that it's a great economic opportunity. We know that communities, especially Black and Brown and Indigenous communities, are already disproportionately impacted by climate change and air pollution. And as we make this transition to EVs, we have an opportunity to really reset our economy and build it in a way that benefits more people, that's more fair, that's more equitable. It's important that we get it right as we do this, but also we're competing globally to lead on electrification, to lead on renewable energy. So it's an opportunity for our country to be competitive globally, and for businesses like Ford that have been around for 120 years to continue to operate in this new era. And so I think that I have the most interesting job at Ford. I always joke, my name's Artelia. It's not a very common name. It's my grandmother's name, but I say that I'm the first of my name and the first of my title. Of course, I'm obsessed with Game of Thrones and now House of Dragons. That doesn't mean that sustainability is new at Ford. Ford has been a leader in sustainability for many, many years. Most of the colleagues that I work with average between, one of my colleagues is retiring in November and has been with Ford for 45 years working in sustainability. My direct supervisor has been within the sustainability career field for almost 30 years. So it's something that's been a long time focus for Ford. And we always talk about the fact that actually our country was found, I'm sorry, our company, maybe the size of a country in some cases, was founded on principles of sustainability. Henry Ford basically wanted a conveyor system where everything that went out, came into the factory, was used and conserved and reused and came out as a product. Everything from the materials that we use to make our vehicles to the waste. So he started a charcoal briquette company because he wanted to use tailings and waste. He started all types of businesses because he wanted to use every single material that came in or out of the material of factory and to create a closed loop system before it was ever really a thing. I have a wonderful job. We have a big challenge ahead of us. And I think that I've been very lucky in my career because when I was in college and when I was learning about climate change, if someone had sat me down and said, what do you want to do? I could not have named what I'm doing now as an actual career. But every day I get up and kind of decide how I'm going to tackle this huge challenge that we have in front of us. So some of the experiences that shaped me, first of all, it was having this sort of early exposure to a topic that I didn't know that much about and having really good mentors. I remember when I was really struggling my dogs are arguing. I hope you can't hear that too much. When I was really struggling with, okay, I'm not going to be an engineer, but what should I do? I went to my career counseling office and I was sitting in the waiting room and there was this poster and it was like, what could you do with a communications degree? And everything that I could imagine that I might want to do at the age of 19 was on that list. Like I could be a politician, I could be a lawyer, I could still go back and be an engineer at some point if my brain changed later in life, which can happen, I'm told. So everything that I could imagine was sort of on that list. So I had lots of good mentors who really allowed me to explore my interests and who allowed me to change and evolve as a person. Even when, I was on a steady path and I'd already spent a lot of time and money trying to be an engineer. So I think that's a really important thing. And then all along the way, I've had excellent, excellent mentors. One thing that's been really important in my career is, to really understand the difference between a mentor and a champion, and you need both to be successful. So you need someone that can coach you personally, but you also have to identify leaders in your circle who are interested in you doing well and who are willing to vouch for you, who are willing to bring you into rooms where maybe your seniority or your level in your career might not necessarily get you into that room at that point. And I've been very fortunate to have champions who brought me along with them, who gave me exposure to things that eventually gave me ideas about what I could do with my own career and helped me grow in that way. And I think the other thing is, of course, to be that same type of person for someone else. So, I talk about this as now that I'm a hiring manager and I lead a team, I really always try to hire people that are smarter than me, that half the time I don't even know what they're talking about, because I feel like that's going to help me be a better leader. And I feel like I want to have those type of people on my team that have got it, even when I don't know what's going on, right? And also just always trying to replicate myself in the organization. I am a person of color. I'm a woman. I have come from a very diverse background. In my career, I've had the opportunity to be in rooms where I know that other people like me have not been allowed to be in that room for whatever reason, because of their education, their background, other barriers. or the way the organizations are set up in some cases. So I always carry the weight of who I'm representing, and I always carry the weight of who is going to come behind me and do this work when I'm ready to vacation in Hawaii, probably retire and go back to the Peace Corps or something like that. And also realizing that that person probably won't look like me, think like me, or have my same background. By replicating, I mean trying to expand the group and the type of people who are interested in this type of career, because the workload is only getting bigger. I have always had job security, and I think, you know, we always have to communicate. It's part of our human nature. But also, I think I was very fortunate because of this, you know, series of events to zero in on something that was going to really be driving where we are today. And as unfortunate as that is, I also think it's a huge career opportunity. So you all are in the right place to be the answer to a massive challenge that we are facing as a global community, where we need lots of different types of people with lots of different types of thinking, background, and experiences in order to be successful. And so in my advice to you moving forward is just to always follow your curiosity, try to find that you size shaped hole in the world where you can make a contribution, and don't be afraid that who you are and what you have to bring, those unique experiences, use that, leverage that, find a way to put that to practice. I was so inspired by Natalie's story, because that's what she did. She figured out something that she was incredibly passionate about, that no one else was really doing, but that she was sort of uniquely positioned to address. And she worked from there. And I think that is sort of one of the secrets that we can all carry forward with us. And I'll just pause there, because I feel like I've done a lot of talking. I'm probably about halfway through my time. And I just want to see if anyone has any questions. I would say opinions, comments, or reactions. Those are welcome as well.
Thank you, Artelia. Somebody asked if you don't mind sharing your contact information. This person said, I'm interested in having a career just like yours, which reminds me to ask you, can you give us a typical day of yours, what that is like?
Yes. And so one of my favorite stories to tell is that when I went to see that career counselor, one of the things that she did was she, you know, just sort of said, okay, we're going to do something weird. I want you to sit back and close your eyes. And I'm going to walk you through this exercise. And I invite you all to do that with me now. And so close your eyes and just imagine that you wake up. What time is it? Where are you? What do you do next? Who do you see? Where are you going? What are you wearing? What are you the most excited about? What are you kind of dreading, but you think you can get through it? And who are you going to need to get through it with? We'll stop there. But she took me through this long exercise where I just sort of answered these questions in my mind. And these images came to me. You know, I knew that when I woke up, it was very early in the morning, because that's just who I am. I knew that I was in a city, and that I got up and that I made coffee and I walked my dogs. I knew that I got up and I put on a professional attire, like I wanted to wear a suit or a really smart looking dress. You know, I wanted to drive a fancy car. I wanted to go into a corporate office building, a high rise. I wanted to be surrounded by light. I wanted to work with really inspiring people. I wanted to travel. All of these things, as we were walking through these conversations, it really helped me start to imagine that. And then we got to the other thing. It's like, what was I excited about? I was excited about a challenge. I was excited about a big sticky problem. I was excited about working with people from all different backgrounds, you know, being able to travel and see the world. So all of these things were super important to me. It probably took me 15 years to get to that point from the day I imagined that, right? So my typical day at Ford, I would say I have two typical days. One typical day is I wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. by choice. I usually don't need an alarm. I usually go out and exercise of some kind. I usually walk my dogs. And then by 6:30, 7 o'clock, I am on a Zoom with one of our global teams. So our European team starts really early. And we tend to, at Ford, save our really difficult problems and our project work for morning, because people are fresh, you know, they're ready to work. They've got their, the Ford people, not every person in America, this is how you know if you could cut it at Ford, is ready to tackle the hard things in the morning. So we have a lot of working groups, our carbon neutrality working group, our global team that's working on that, everyone from Europe to China from a time zone perspective are on a call. It's nighttime in China, it's morning in Europe, or mid-afternoon in Europe and morning for me. And we're all working together to solve this. So we'll spend big chunks of the day on these really gnarly issues. This morning we were talking about offsetting and, you know, what are offsets? What are the role of them? Who's doing it? How do you do it well? Do we need to do it at all? All of these questions we were answering. Then I sort of transition to more creative work. So usually at this point, I start meeting with teams that are working on creative projects for Ford. So I meet with our marketing team. They are like the 10 a.m.ers, right? Like they're just, you know, they're wearing all black and they've got amazing art on their walls and they're finally getting rolling at 10 a.m. And we start to work on storyboarding ideas, reviewing videos, planning our communication strategies, coordinating across the teams. And then in afternoons, I save it for, you know, the gnarly stuff of following up on all of the tasks, writing press releases. I like to save early afternoon to do creative work by myself because by 3 p.m., most of my team is offline and I can spend an hour or two writing a press release, reviewing documents, providing feedback to my team, and making sure they're ready to go and have what they need from me when they get started very early the next morning. Another type of day at Ford is traveling. And so this is my favorite thing. One of the projects that I lead is something called Blue Table Forum. And it is a group of about 50 nonprofit, academic, and other organizations that we are engaging with in our effort to reach carbon neutrality and to be advocates for climate justice. And so a great day there would be that I have traveled to a new city. I start the night before with like a happy hour, a dinner, a chat with all the people that I love working with who are super inspired, people like Natalie. And then the next morning we get up and we have a big group listening session. And we have a topic and a presenter that comes in and starts to lay out a challenge. Like for Ford, a challenge might be, we're building a new plant or facility in Tennessee, and we really want to hire people locally in Tennessee, and we really want to make an impact to make those jobs equitable and accessible. So what are we going to do about childcare? What are we going to do about transportation? What are we going to do about food to make sure that we can meet our workers where they are and get them to work and into our facilities? And what are we going to do about training? So big listening session where we're exchanging ideas. Sometimes we're getting criticized. Sometimes we're being critiqued. Sometimes people are happy with what we're doing, but we're all learning together. And so those are two examples of days that I have at Ford, and I love every bit of it.
Wow. What about internships? Did you have any on your trajectory towards the career that you now hold?
Yes, and I would say that I come from, you know, I was raised in a single parent household. We didn't have any money. And I actually had my first internship at an age when I actually had to apply for a working permit to go to my internship. So in high school, I was part of a program where we got to go around and meet different business professionals. We got to go to a TV studio. We got to go to a college and watch a professor teach a lesson. We got to be exposed to lots of different types of careers. And one of the career opportunities or one of the places that I went as part of this program was a marketing firm in San Antonio. And while I was there, you know, they said, actually, we really loved the students that came in and we would like to hire you. But the other student was a senior and I was, I think, a rising sophomore at that point. And so we got these very awesome summer internships. I was able to work at age 15 in an office setting part-time, but one of the projects that I was leading is that I was opening a brand new movie theater. And in order to do my PR job, my public relations job at that movie theater, I had to take a bunch of people, including reporters, on a hard hat tour. And in order to go to the construction site, I had to have a work permit. And so that's my funny story about having to apply for a work permit in order to go to my job, because I started at around 15. I also had some really great opportunities. I know, yeah.
Artelia, let me just say we're getting a little pressed for time.
Yeah, it's time to stop. I'll just answer this last question.
You've done so amazingly well and given us so much information. Yes, go ahead. You finished
just
up.
the one question in the chat. It is called, I think it's either called upward bound or upward or outward bound. So I'll Google it and put it in the chat. But thank you guys. And
thank you. And if you can stick around, we may have some additional questions at the very end. Awesome information that you gave us. Thank you. So I'm going to move on to our last, but certainly not least, wonderful speaker, who is Ferris Kawar. And Mr. Kawar is the Sustainability Project Manager at Santa Monica College. He's been with SMC for 7 years, managing all aspects of sustainability across the campus. He was previously the recycling specialist for the city of Burbank and has been working in the field of sustainability for the past 20 years. Welcome you, and thank you for waiting for Ferris to speak.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, everyone. I'm going to share my screen really quickly because I want to walk you through just some examples of what we do with sustainability and how sustainability looks across campus, which kind of answers the question of what does my job entail? Because really sustainability touches everything in lives. It is not just about the energy that we produce from the solar panels or how much waste we collect and divert from the landfill. It is in everything that we do. And we need to be thinking about that in terms of our own lives, that, we need to learn of how things are interconnected and how we impact the world in everything that we do and every career that you're going to go into. So really quickly, sustainability, we've been a leader for many decades. Actually, we have sustainability written all throughout the college's mission, vision, goal statements. We've had a sustainability office on campus for 20 years. We've had my position was the very first sustainability manager position in all of the California community colleges. We've been a leader, winning awards, signing climate commitments ahead of most other community colleges. This is a quick view of the inside of our Sustainability Center on Pearl Street, which I hope you guys come over and visit sometimes. But I do tours for students because I'm trying to show them that this is a pretty good looking office and it's very functional. We have 14 people who work out of here. We are, very productive, yet it is a zero waste office, almost zero net energy. So we hardly use more energy than we create. We don't have any air conditioning. We don't have a traditional heater that burns natural gas to heat, yet it's a very comfortable building. And we show students how you don't have to give up to have a smaller footprint on the world. And that is, translated from your own personal lives into the careers that you go into. And we show that, nearly all the problems we have in the world are solvable with the solutions we have today. And we don't have to wait for things to be invented. We have the solutions on the shelf today. We just need to know enough to choose the right options. A few examples, we have desks made from sunflower seed shells and wall insulation made from blue jeans scraps, and our lighting is all solar. We've got carpet and furniture made from recycled water bottles. We have a seed library. Nat spoke about the importance of saving seeds. We do that here. We have a book library, DVD library. So hope you guys can come over and check that out sometime. But my purview also extends to an organic learning garden. So we're providing space for students to learn to be self-sufficient with their food production. And that's where Natalie, our star student, really figured out, that, hey, we have the ability to produce a lot of food. And she was so instrumental in feeding other students, and she would spearhead we did a free farmers market, and you'll see in a couple of slides here, and she helped spearhead that and put it all together. And then she went out and replicated it in the real world when the world really needed it in LA. And she's an amazing light in our world. I'm the advisor to many student clubs, 4 different student clubs, which span from the garden club, the bike club, the eco action, plastic free SMC. And I get to work with those students to help mentor them, advise their club on what they might want to focus on this year, events, speakers, films, all that kind of stuff. And I like to emphasize that the students on this campus have made the most impact on the college by getting the college to do more on sustainability. Students have more power than faculty or staff when it comes to influencing the college. So remember that you guys, when you have a good idea that you want to see happen on campus, it's going to be the students who are going to be instrumental in actually getting it done. If I went to, the administration with a good idea, it's going to be seen very differently than if students come together and say, hey, we've got a really good idea. Well, this is how we think it will play out. Everyone wants to see the students succeed and at least try. And so there's so many more opportunities for change. And I'm there to kind of help you, see that through. This is the farmers market that Natalie helped start, and we were running this for a few years before it turned into what we now have as the bodega, which is a fixed place students can come to and get food on every day, Monday through Friday now. And it's not just produce now, it's all sorts of other things, even clothing, eggs, and packaged goods as well. But I also work with facilities. So I am a LEED certified, person who understands how, buildings work and how we should, find efficiencies. And, I work with our facilities to try to figure out, well, what are the best options for not just designing new buildings, but doing new projects or retrofitting old buildings. So I work very closely with our facilities departments. And, here are some of the large projects that they've done where we've, have solar, not just solar catching the rays of the sun, but catching those and turning them into electricity, but turning that into hot water, using LED lighting, using central plants to cool water, to replace HVAC, chemicals that, are bad. We try to use just cold water to do the same job. So a lot of those things fall under me. And also recycling and composting. We've got a zero waste initiative on campus. We're really starting to roll out more composting, and I manage a group of student recyclers. We also have been composting in not a large scale, but like medium scale for over 20 years. And we have a compost bin that's 16 feet long and 6 feet deep, and it has 400,000 worms that eat through about 3 to 500 pounds of food scraps, depending on, pre-COVID or post-COVID. But it's really an amazing system where the worms are turning our food waste into something that the campus can use to spread all over campus and make the plants grow healthy. It avoids all the trucking miles to a landfill and the costs of that, and then avoids having us to bring in all sorts of compost from faraway places. So it's a beautiful closed loop system. I also handle all the alternative transportation. So I'm not the parking person. I am the person who helps people find a way to get out of their cars. I work with the Big Blue Bus and the City Transportation Department, the Metro, LA Metro Department to get those bus passes to everyone. I work on, increasing bike lanes and bike parking. And we just got we just got awarded bike friendly university at the silver level the other day. So we're promoting that. And, it's just so important because 65% of our carbon emissions across campus come from commuting. So whatever we can do to get out of our cars as often as possible, that's going to be making a big difference. Or switching to EVs, right? All of that is making a huge impact. But curriculum, I actually think curriculum is the biggest impact we have, even over commuting, because what you do in your future career is going to have a much larger impact on the world. So I'm always working with faculty to weave in sustainability into their curriculum across the board, and also help increase the number of dedicated classes or programs that focus on sustainability. We have a AA degree in environmental studies, a degree in environmental science. You can get an AA degree in recycling and resource management, or a certificate in that. We used to have one in energy efficiency and solar, and we're hoping to bring that back, but the professor retired. So that's something that we can do. But it's really important that students really figure out how can they take sustainability, not just into their own lives, which is important, but also into their career, which is going to have a huge impact. This class is something that I really wanted to make sure you guys heard about. It's a 8-week student greening workshop that we've been running for over 20 years. And this is how I got into sustainability. I was a marketing major. I actually went to community college for 2 years, transferred to Sacramento State, got my degree in business marketing, moved to San Francisco, worked for an ad agency for 5 years, and then moved to Los Angeles, happened to land in Santa Monica, took this very workshop just for giggles. Like it was a summer class, and I thought, that'd be interesting to learn a little bit more about sustainability. Blew my socks off, showed me how little I actually knew. I thought I was all green, coming from San Francisco, but it showed me how much I didn't know and how many solutions are just out there. And this was 20 years ago. And I was just like, why don't people know about this? And I thought, well, here I am with a marketing degree. And what do you do in marketing? You promote products. Well, why can't I use my skills to promote a better way of living, right? Or green products. And so I ended up starting to teach this workshop, and then got other jobs, worked on a film about climate change, worked on a book about guiding people to where to find the better products and services in their city. Did that in LA, New York, San Francisco. Then I worked for the city of Burbank. And then almost 8 years ago, I came back to SMC. And now it's great because I oversee this program, which was so pivotal. And I have seen so many people take this workshop, and about 60 professors offer it as extra credit. And I have seen, thousands of students take this and think, I'll learn a little bit, sure, I just need the extra credit. And then boom, they just change their career trajectory because they're like, this is what I want to do. This is, you know, important. I'd never heard about these things before. And I just think it's the best thing we got going. I hope you look into it next semester and try to get that done. We've got also free non-credit certificates in bicycle maintenance, in sustainability, systems and technology, where, you know, these are like a 3-course certificate that you can learn kind of like, how do I get an entry level job into sustainability? And they're fantastic. It's, you know, it's free. The other courses, like in recycling, those are 4 credit certificates that are those are regular $43 per credit, but these are terrific. And then this is the last thing, is there's a new certificate in aquaculture that I'm working on with several professors on campus, but CSUN also has aquaculture classes up there. So we're kind of, that's how Nat and I are connected. But I really, you know, see this as a whole new opportunity to grow shellfish, seaweeds, possibly in the future finfish, all together, so that it is creates healthier marine environment, creates an income, something we've never done before. We import 80 to 90% of our seafood from other countries or other areas of the US. We should be doing it right here and making the money and keeping the money and keeping the carbon from being generated. And seaweed grows 5 times faster than trees and can sequester carbon 5 times faster, and it's not going to burn down, doesn't require any inputs, doesn't require watering. And so we can help reduce, you know, the carbon in the atmosphere by cultivating seaweed up and down our coast. So it's regenerative aquaculture. So it's really exciting. That's kind of where I want to see things go. And let's see, I want to see if there's any of the questions that I might have missed that I wanted to talk about. So, you know, to get into the industry, there wasn't, 20 years ago, there really weren't any AA degrees, certificates, even BA, BS degrees. There were a couple of master's degrees, but really nothing undergraduate in just sustainability. And now there are, but I, you know, really recommend looking into those certificates as a opportunity to start to get into this field. I am kind of a jack of all trades, which is not really too typical. You know, you can just go into just energy or just water efficiency or just recycling and resource management. But if you want to be like a chief sustainability officer, which is, you know, salaries are over 100,000 a year to, I've seen, you know, 300,000 a year. Those positions are becoming more and more regular in companies and in cities. You know, so there's you know, all sorts of industries are adopting sustainability and elevating this title or this position higher up. But you know, so it is a little difficult to be a jack of all trades, to know all about sustainability. It takes you know, decades to get that kind of deep knowledge in all areas. But I suggest, you know, like the student greening workshop is a great way to really get an idea of just the how everything works together, because they cover all topics: energy, water, waste, chemicals, transportation, food, shopping, and they show how everything is interrelated, what the career opportunities are, and you know, what you can do to make those changes in your life. And it's to me a great foundational workshop to take, and it's not a 4-credit class, just extra credit. And then, you know, some of the other certificates.
Can
Yes.
I just interrupt and ask,
Please.
just looking at time, and I want to just give a last couple of remarks at the
Thank
end,
you.
but can you kind of summarize a little bit, and then we'll leave the rest of the time up for any additional questions and answers?
Yeah, I think that, my path was circuitous like most people's, and you now have opportunities to get into sustainability through, traditional programs, like certificates, AA degrees, BS degrees. And it's really fulfilling. Working in this field just feels great. And I know that that's what people are aching for. They want to align their values with what they do every day. They don't want to have to, do their job and then go home and write a check to Greenpeace or Sierra Club. They want to make the difference in their job every day. And this is, there's now opportunities to do that everywhere.
Those
And
are
every job needs to be a sustainability job. It's not just for people like me, and it's not just for, biologists that are going to save the world. Everyone needs to look at their job as a sustainability job too. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Ferris? And before we close and say thank you to everybody that's here still, check out the chat. There's a lot of links that were put in there about some of the topics the speakers reported on. Be sure to sign the sign-in sheet if you want extra credit. I'd like to really thank all of the panelists today. I know a couple of them had to leave early. You all were so inspiring. You shared your afternoon with students. Thank you so much. I know students that were here got a lot out of all of the comments that were said throughout this afternoon. Thank you to the students who participated. Don't forget to fill in the sign-in sheet. And I'd also like to thank the whole sustainability department, the faculty members who were so supportive and helpful in putting this together with us and getting some of these speakers to agree to participate. And also I'd like to thank our STEM team, who are always really encouraging and helpful and a big part of this whole presentation. I couldn't have done this without you all. So thank you, everyone. Any last comments? Joy, Victoria, anybody have anything they'd like to say?
I just put my email in the chat. So please reach out to me if you have any questions on our courses. So we are have certificate in earth science as well as in the business department. The business department just launched 4 courses in sustainability and business. My colleague, Professor Rockwell, and I are teaching. I'm teaching a sustainability reporting class right now as we speak, which is really important for whatever you're studying in sustainability to understand ESG reporting and sustainability reporting. So please reach out to me if you have any questions.
Anybody have a hand to raise that wants to say anything last before we end? Lots of thank yous. So thank you, everybody, for giving us your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for focusing in this area. This
You're-
is so important. We appreciate it,
It was
Counselor.
wonderful to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you.